It's not always about frame data and hitboxes. These are the stories behind the faces on the character select screen and why we keep coming back to them. These are the Fighter Files. Little is known of the Senjutsu master named Oro. His past is riddled with rumor and innuendo. Almost nothing is known of his early life. It is believed that Oro was born in Japan over 170 years ago, sometime in the year 1858. It's possible that Oro was born to a rich family, as he seemingly has no money woes in spite of holding no form of employment for most of his life. Of course, that is assuming that Oro pays for his travel across the world, and isn't simply a stowaway on the hull of the airplanes. Regardless of his economic situation, Oro's life as a hermit wouldn't see him dip into his funds all that often. He was a child of the earth, and the earth provided. While living in Japan as a young man, Oro had gained acclaim as a martial artist. In 1895, he challenged Karen's grandfather to an exhibition match. The contest lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, ending with Oro as the victor. Successes like that allowed Oro to have steady work as a martial arts instructor, another possible explanation for his wealth in later life. By the time he was in his 40s, Oro was already celebrated as one of the finest fighters of his generation. He had fame, fortune, countless successes to his name, yet Oro was not satisfied. By 1908, Oro's hunger had grown, yet he still didn't know how to satiate it. He was 50 years old now, yet he still was as lost then as he was as a young man. Eventually, a friend of his convinced Oro to travel into Brazil. Perhaps an exotic environment on the other side of the world would finally stir something within Oro. Months passed. Parties, fast cars, decadent food. It didn't matter if he was in Osaka or Rio de Janeiro. Oro was still miserable. Blinded by his depression, Oro ventured into the jungles of the Amazon, away from society and its comforts. He eventually came across a desolate cave. Oro collapsed within the darkness of the cave, not caring if he woke up. With the dawn, light poured into Oro's cave. As he opened his eyes, he only then realized that he had been sharing the cave with countless animals. Birds, turtles, dogs, all sleeping amongst one another with no issue. As he took in his surroundings, he was content. This was a good morning, one without want or desire. Oro remained in that cave for several days, only leaving to do basic exercises before returning to the shelter he had found. Days became weeks, weeks into months, yet he never felt ready to leave the cave for very long. Somehow, he knew this was where he was meant to be. Oro was a new man. Whoever had left Japan to come to Brazil died the night he collapsed in the tunnel. It was a new path Oro wished to follow. Oro chose a new discipline, a martial art he felt better represented his new journey. He was no longer a man of traditional value, so he chose to study the rare and often overlooked Senjutsu. It would take years to even learn the basic tenets, but in time, Oro would be considered the world's foremost expert in the style. Training overtook everything else for Oro. Parties, social engagements, material possessions, none of those mattered in the face of his training. The only breaks he would take from his development would be to sleep or to venture into nearby villages for supplies. Legends spread of this enigma of a man. He was a myth more than he was a person now. Senjutsu empowered Oro past the limits of any mere man. He aged, but never to the point of degradation. He hungered, but never to the point of starvation. Creation itself fueled Oro, Senjutsu his connection to the universe. As his expertise grew, so too did Oro's fear that he had become too powerful. In order to spar with others without endangering them, Oro would tuck his dominant arm behind his back. In spite of only using his left hand, he still overcame any challenger. As stories spread of Oro and his unparalleled mastery, many would seek him out for training. For 9 decades, many would learn from Oro, but none would succeed. They lacked the drive, the passion, the dedication. To become a true student of Oro, one would have to live to learn, to train. For 90 years, Oro waited. He hoped that destiny would reward his patience with a true successor, but such a student would never arrive. The old master wanted to impart the lessons he had so painfully learned over his long life, but it became clear that such a person would never simply wander into his cave. If Oro wished to find a student worthy of Senjutsu, he would have to seek them out. The final push for Oro's journey came in the form of a raging demon. Akuma had learned of Oro. Oro's ki enabled him to evade Akuma's first strikes, but the secret to Oro's survival was his own use of the Setsue no Hado. Akuma had never encountered a fellow master of the craft. For several days, the two fought, each one attempting to destroy the other. The savagery only ended when Oro and Akuma both realized that the only way this battle could end would be with mutual destruction. Akuma left the jungles, but Oro feared his return. Perhaps the next time, the demon wouldn't see such reason. Oro now knew at least one fighter in the world was his equal, and in time, Akuma could prove to be his better. If the demon returned, Oro's life would be forfeit. If the secrets of Senjutsu were to endure, Oro would need to find his successor. For the first time since his arrival, Oro left the jungles of the Amazon. His one companion on this quest would be Yamasen, a turtle Oro met his first night in the cave. Yamasen, in a way, had helped set Oro onto this path of Senjutsu. Now Yamasen would accompany him on his next stage of life. As Oro ventured into India, he was greeted by a man on a similar search for inner peace, Dhalsim. When the younger man invited Oro to dinner, the old master was happy to share a meal with an interesting stranger. The world had changed greatly in 90 years. Oro hadn't realized how long he had been away, not until he was told of a Shadaloo dictator that empowered himself with some energy called psycho power. Dhalsim spoke with great fear of a rising darkness, a man whose lust for power and destruction would cast the world into a great fire. Though Dhalsim was certainly wise for a man of his age, Oro still heard the fear of a young man as the Indian fighter uttered the name Bison. Oro was far too old to feel fear like that any longer. Though Dhalsim was right to believe a man that wanted power to dominate could destroy the natural order, Oro believed the universe would always provide an antibody, a balance. Surely, there must be a being of light, one that would seek power not to destroy, but to understand. A selfless fighter, a dragon to fight the tiger. Dhalsim asked Oro to explain his beliefs, but the master refused to elaborate. He was happy to point to a new path, but it was up to Dhalsim to walk it. Oro would stay with Dhalsim for a few days longer, as he enjoyed the conversation and the curry in equal measure. He watched as Dhalsim trained a man named Malesh in the art of fire breathing. Oro admitted to finding Dhalsim's abilities odd, but not for the reasons most would take such issue with them. To Oro, Dhalsim's failure had been in stretching himself too thin. He had gained working knowledge on multiple techniques and powers, but mastery over none of them. In the eyes of the old master, Dhalsim lacked the conviction to ever truly walk Oro's path. Dhalsim would always be a friend, but never a peer. Oro continued his travels, meeting gods and mystics, but still failed to find his new student. Before he returned to Brazil, Oro paid Dhalsim one final visit. The old master feared that his fighting style would die with him. He couldn't allow his wisdom to do the same. Over their dinner, Oro spoke on Dhalsim's stoicism. The yoga master saw the world in absolutes, good and evil, humility, and arrogance. In the world of Dhalsim, gray was bled out, only leaving a landscape of black and white. Dhalsim trusted the wisdom of Oro, respected him as a master. Oro revealed his ability with the Seshue no Hado. Dhalsim had encountered this power before. It was the energy that the demon Akuma tapped into. If Dhalsim's view of the world was true, only a being with a cruel heart could wield such power. Yet here Oro stood, neither evil nor heartless, yet making use of a malicious energy. Oro held a dark power in one hand, but in the other he placed his ki, the energy of an enlightened soul. Oro could wield both, because neither light nor darkness controlled him. The old master explained that all energy, regardless of its intent, came from the same origin. The power to heal and the power to destroy were both born of the earth itself, and would return to the earth in due time. Like all power, these energies could blind or bind a user. Dhalsim had been led astray by their devotion, while men like Akuma and Bison had been overcome by the darkness of the energies they tapped into. Mastery didn't come from summoning such power, but by living with it, using it to its fullest potential without losing one's self. Oro shared his belief that one day, a fighter would forego such concepts as good or evil, as these labels only dulled the senses and harmed the natural order. A world warrior would emerge that embodied the light and the dark, lived in both while fully belonging to neither. That was the student Oro sought out. Having shared this final lesson with Dhalsim, Oro would leave once again. In 1998, Oro's search resumed. Entering the World Warrior Tournament, he was hopeful that he would finally meet the successor that had long eluded him. Though fighters such as Ibuki had great skill, Oro still wanted to find the person that would challenge him while still having the humility to learn. Instead, he was met by the devil. Akuma had found him. Once again the two fought. Once again, it ended in a stalemate. Oro had endured once more, but he knew that Akuma was losing himself to the lust for power. Yet, even in the darkness, there was a light of hope. Oro learned that Akuma had been overcome by a young man named Ryu. Oro watched Ryu in the tournament, and for the first time in 50 years, he felt excitement. As he exercised alone, Oro mused that it would take at least 15 more years for Ryu to reach his true potential, but the old master could wait. He knew that Ryu would provide him with a fight so glorious that he may even have to use his other arm. Oro would rest atop a rock, knowing that the next time he encountered Ryu, the young man would be ready. Little did Oro know that Ryu was actually with him then and there, lifting the rock that Oro was resting on. Even if neither man realized the other was there, it seemed as though fate itself conspired to have them meet again someday. The latest point in Street Fighter's timeline currently is Street Fighter VI, set 10 years after Street Fighter III. By the year 2008, Ryu has only become all the more accomplished and capable a warrior. Just as Oro predicted, the young dragon continued to grow, sharpening his fangs by overcoming the tigers and serpents that attacked him. Though Oro hadn't made himself known yet, the old master had said he wished to give Ryu 15 years to discover his true potential. Perhaps in 5 years' time, Ryu would be ready to face Oro properly. For as long as Ryu survived, so too did Oro's hope that a fighter could finally bring about the balance the universe desired. In time, maybe they both could discover the answer that lied in the heart of battle.